Stop waiting for retirement. Imagine meeting two people. The first person spends 40 years working a job they don't enjoy. They wake up every morning to an alarm clock, fight through traffic, sit in meetings they hate, and count the days until retirement. The second person works differently. They travel throughout their life, spend time with family, pursue hobbies, learn new skills, and still earn a good living. At age 65, both people have similar amounts of money. But one person spent decades postponing happiness, while the other enjoyed life along the way. Which life would you choose? This question sits at the heart of the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. One of the book's most powerful lessons is simple. Don't wait until retirement to start living. For most of us, we've been taught a very specific life plan. Go to school. Get good grades. Find a stable job. Work hard. Save money. Retire. Then finally enjoy life. At first glance, this plan seems logical. But Tim Ferriss argues that it contains a dangerous assumption. The assumption is that your best years are waiting for you at the end. And that's a risky bet. Because life doesn't come with guarantees. No one knows how much time they have. No one knows what their health will be like decades from now. No one knows what opportunities they'll miss while waiting. Ferriss challenges readers to ask a difficult question. Why are we delaying the things we truly want? Think about it. Many people dream of traveling the world. Yet they tell themselves they'll do it after retirement. Some want to write books. Others want to learn languages. Some want to start businesses. Many want to spend more time with family. Yet these dreams remain trapped behind the phrase, someday. Someday is one of the most dangerous words in the world. Because someday often becomes never. Ferriss realized this lesson early in life. Like many ambitious people, he chased success. He worked long hours. He pushed himself constantly. He believed that working harder would eventually create freedom. But instead of freedom, he found exhaustion. The harder he worked, the more trapped he became. His business was growing. His income was increasing. Yet his lifestyle was getting worse. Many people experience the same thing. They achieve success on paper but feel miserable in reality. Why? Because they confuse income with freedom. Money is important. But money without time isn't wealth. Imagine earning $1 million per year but working 16 hours every day. Now imagine earning half as much but having complete control over your schedule. Which person is actually richer? Ferriss argues that true wealth is measured by freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to travel. Freedom to spend time with loved ones. Freedom to explore interests. Freedom to live according to your own priorities. Most people focus entirely on money. Very few focus on lifestyle design. And that's where problems begin. Let's do a simple thought experiment. Imagine someone offered you two options. Option A. You earn $100,000 per year. You work 80 hours every week. You have only 2 weeks of vacation. Option B. You earn $60,000 per year. You work 20 hours per week. You can travel whenever you want. You control your schedule. Many people automatically choose option A. Why? Because society teaches us to maximize income. But Ferriss encourages us to maximize freedom. The goal isn't to become the richest person in the cemetery. The goal is to build a life you actually enjoy. This idea leads to one of the book's most famous concepts. The concept of mini-retirements. Traditional retirement happens once. Usually at the end of your career. Mini-retirements happen throughout your life. Instead of working non-stop for 40 years, you intentionally create periods of adventure, learning, travel, and personal growth. Maybe you spend 3 months exploring another country. Maybe you take 6 months to write a book. Maybe you learn a new skill. Maybe you simply spend more time with your family. The key idea is this: life should not be postponed. It should be experienced now. Many people resist this idea because they fear financial insecurity. And that's understandable. But Ferriss isn't suggesting reckless behavior. He's suggesting intentional living. There's a difference. He wants readers to stop automatically accepting society's default script. Instead of asking, "How can I survive until retirement?" ask, "How can I design a life I don't need to escape from?" That question changes everything. Because once you ask it, your priorities begin to shift. You stop chasing status for its own sake. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop measuring success through possessions alone. Instead, you begin measuring success through experiences. Think about the moments you'll remember at the end of your life. Will you remember checking emails? Will you remember attending unnecessary meetings? Will you remember spending extra hours at the office? Probably not. You'll remember adventures, relationships, challenges overcome, places visited, people loved, lessons learned. Those experiences create meaning. And meaning cannot be postponed indefinitely. Ferriss often points out that people overestimate risk. They imagine worst-case scenarios. What if I fail? What if I lose money? What if things don't work out? But they rarely ask the opposite question. What if I succeed? What if I create a better life? What if taking action becomes the best decision I ever make? Fear keeps many people trapped. But regret is often far more painful than failure. Years later, most people don't regret trying. They regret not trying. This lesson isn't really about retirement. It's about time. Time is the most valuable resource we possess. Unlike money, once time is spent, it never returns. You can earn more money. You cannot earn more years. Every day is a portion of your life. And every decision represents a trade. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying no to something else. The question is, are you trading your time for things that truly matter? Or are you simply following a script someone else wrote for you? Ferriss encourages readers to become architects of their own lives. To challenge assumptions. To rethink old beliefs. To define success on their own terms. Not according to parents. Not according to friends. Not according to society. According to themselves. Because at the end of the day, your life belongs to you. Not your employer. Not social expectations. Not cultural traditions. You. And if that's true, then perhaps the most important question is, what are you waiting for? If there's a dream you've been postponing, why? If there's a place you've always wanted to visit, what's stopping you? If there's a skill you've wanted to learn, when will you begin? The perfect moment rarely arrives. Life happens now. Not someday. Not after retirement. Not after one more promotion. Not after reaching some magical number in your bank account. Now. That is the central lesson of the 4-hour workweek. Stop waiting to live. Start designing a life worth living today. Do less, achieve more. You'll own a business with 100 customers. At the end of the year, you discover something surprising. Only 20 of those customers generated 80% of your profits. The other 80 customers took most of your time, created most of the problems, and produced very little revenue. Now imagine you're a student. You study 10 different topics for an exam. But when the test arrives, you realize that only 2 topics account for most of the questions. Or imagine you're an athlete. You practice dozens of techniques every week. Yet only a handful of those techniques actually determine whether you win or lose. What if success isn't about doing more? What if success is about identifying the few things that matter most? This idea forms one of the most powerful lessons in the 4-hour workweek. The principle is known as the 80-20 rule. And once you understand it, you'll never look at work the same way again. The 80-20 rule comes from the observations of an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. He noticed that roughly 80% of Italy's land was owned by 20% of the population. Later, researchers found similar patterns everywhere. 80% of profits often come from 20% of customers. 80% of sales come from 20% of products. 80% of complaints come from 20% of clients. 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. The exact numbers don't always match. Sometimes it's 90 out of 10. Sometimes it's 70/30ths. But the core idea remains the same. A small number of causes create a large number of effects. Tim Ferriss realized this principle was transforming his own business. At the time, he was working endless hours. He answered emails constantly. He dealt with customer issues every day. He believed that every customer deserved equal attention. Then he analyzed the numbers. What he found shocked him. A small group of customers generated most of his income. At the same time, a different small group created most of his headaches. Some customers constantly complained. Some demanded excessive support. Some consumed enormous amounts of time while contributing very little revenue. Ferriss made a bold decision. He stopped focusing on everyone. Instead, he focused on the customers who mattered most. The result? Less stress. More profit. More freedom. This experience taught him an important lesson. Not all effort is equal. Some actions produce enormous rewards. Others produce almost nothing. Yet most people treat all tasks as equally important. That's why they stay busy all day without making meaningful progress. Let's think about a typical workday. You wake up. Check emails. Respond to messages. Attend meetings. Answer calls. Review reports. Handle requests. By the end of the day, you're exhausted. But then someone asks, "What important goal did you move forward today?" And suddenly you're not sure. You were busy. But were you productive? There's a difference. Busyness is activity. Productivity is progress. Many people spend their lives confusing the two. Ferriss argues that productivity comes from identifying the highest impact actions and focusing relentlessly on them. To understand this, imagine you're trying to knock down a wall. You can throw 1,000 small pebbles. Or you can throw 10 large boulders. Which strategy creates better results? Most people spend their days throwing pebbles. Small tasks. Minor obligations. Low-value activities. The truly successful focus on boulders. High-impact actions. Meaningful projects. Important decisions. The challenge is identifying which activities belong in each category. Ferriss recommends asking a powerful question. What 20% of activities produce 80% of my results? Think about your career. Which tasks create the greatest value? Which projects lead to the biggest opportunities? Which relationships have the greatest impact? Now ask another question. What 20% of activities create 80% of my problems? This second question is equally important. Because success isn't only about doing more of the right things. It's also about eliminating the wrong things. Many people never stop to examine where their time goes. They simply react. Someone sends an email. They respond. Someone schedules a meeting. They attend. Someone asks for help. They say yes. Before long, their schedule belongs to everyone except themselves. Ferriss encourages readers to become ruthless about priorities. Not cruel. Not selfish. Strategic. Every hour spent on a low-value task is an hour not spent on a high-value task. Every unnecessary commitment carries a hidden cost. Every distraction steals attention from what truly matters. Let's look at another example. Imagine you're a content creator. You spend time on 10 different social media platforms. You create posts everywhere. You answer comments constantly. You try to be active on every channel. Then you analyze your results. You discover that one platform generates 80% of your audience growth. The others contribute almost nothing. What should you do? Most people continue spreading their energy across all 10 platforms. Ferriss would suggest focusing heavily on the one platform producing results. Why waste energy where it has little impact? The same principle applies to learning. Many students spend hours highlighting textbooks, rewriting notes, organizing folders, creating color-coded systems. These activities feel productive. But do they improve understanding? Sometimes. Sometimes not. The highest performing students focus on the activities that directly improve performance. Practice questions. Problem solving. Active recall. Targeted review. Again, less effort. Better results. The 80-20 rule forces us to challenge assumptions. It asks us to stop measuring effort and start measuring outcomes. Because effort alone means very little. Imagine two salespeople. The first works 60 hours per week. The second works 30 hours per week. But the second salesperson consistently produces better results. Who is more effective? Most people instinctively admire hard work. And hard work certainly matters. But effectiveness matters even more. Ferriss believes many people are trapped by what he calls productivity theater. They perform work rather than produce results. They stay late at the office. They answer emails immediately. They attend countless meetings. From the outside, they appear extremely productive. But appearances can be misleading. Real productivity is measured by outcomes. Not activity. Not hours worked. Not how busy you look. Results. This idea can be uncomfortable. Because it forces us to examine our habits honestly. Many of us spend time on tasks that feel important but aren't. We stay busy because busyness feels safe. When we're constantly occupied, we don't have to ask difficult questions. Are we moving forward? Are we pursuing meaningful goals? Are we spending time wisely? The 80-20 rule demands those questions. And once you start asking them, your life begins to change. You become more selective. More intentional. More focused. You stop trying to do everything. You start identifying the few actions that matter most. Ferriss often emphasizes that success isn't about adding more. It's about subtracting more. Eliminate distractions. Remove low-value tasks. Reduce unnecessary commitments. Protect your attention. Protect your time. Because time is finite. Every yes is also a no. Every commitment consumes resources. Every distraction carries a cost. The people who achieve extraordinary results aren't necessarily working harder than everyone else. Often, they're simply focusing on the right things. And that's the true power of the 80-20 rule. It reminds us that life isn't a game of quantity. It's a game of quality. A few important actions can change everything. A few key decisions can transform a career. A few meaningful relationships can open extraordinary opportunities. A few productive habits can reshape an entire future. The challenge is having the courage to ignore the trivial and focus on the essential. That's what Ferriss wants readers to learn. Stop trying to do everything. Start doing what matters. Because the path to freedom isn't through more effort. It's through better focus. Escaping information overload and distractions. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and deciding to check your phone for just 1 minute. You unlock the screen. A few emails. A news alert. A social media notification. A message from a friend. You tap one notification. Then another. Then another. Before you know it, 30 minutes have disappeared. You haven't started your day. You haven't moved toward your goals. You've simply consumed information. Sound familiar? For millions of people, this isn't an occasional problem. It's a daily lifestyle. And according to the 4-hour workweek, it's one of the biggest reasons people feel overwhelmed, stressed, and unproductive. We live in an age where information is everywhere. Every second, new emails arrive. New videos are uploaded. New articles are published. New notifications appear. And while access to information can be valuable, Tim Ferriss argues that most people have crossed a dangerous line. Instead of using information as a tool, they've become servants to it. They consume more and more information while producing less and less meaningful work. Ferriss introduces a simple but powerful idea. Most information is useless. At first, that statement sounds shocking. After all, isn't knowledge power? Yes. But only relevant knowledge. Knowing hundreds of random facts won't change your life. Knowing information that helps you achieve your goals can. There's a huge difference. Imagine you're learning to drive a car. Do you need to understand every detail of engine engineering before you start driving? Of course not. You only need the information necessary to operate the vehicle effectively. Life works the same way. Most people gather information endlessly without taking action. They read books. Watch videos. Listen to podcasts. Scroll through social media. Read articles. Consume news. And yet their lives remain unchanged. Why? Because information alone doesn't create results. Action creates results. Ferriss realized this when he examined his own habits. Like many ambitious professionals, he constantly consumed information. Business magazines. Industry reports. News updates. Email newsletters. He thought staying informed would make him more successful. Instead, it made him distracted. The more information he consumed, the harder it became to focus. This led him to a critical realization. Being informed and being effective are not the same thing. Many people wear busyness like a badge of honor. They proudly say things like, "I'm swamped. I'm buried in emails. I've been busy all day." But Ferriss asks an important question. Busy doing what? Because being busy doesn't necessarily mean you're accomplishing anything important. In fact, constant information consumption often creates the illusion of productivity. You feel productive because you're doing something. You're reading. Researching. Checking updates. Responding to messages. But are those activities moving you toward your goals? Often, the answer is no. This is where Ferriss introduces the concept of an information diet. Just as unhealthy food can damage your body, excessive information can damage your focus. Imagine eating every piece of food placed in front of you. Every snack. Every dessert. Every meal. No limits. No filtering. Eventually, your health would suffer. The same thing happens mentally. If you consume every article, every notification, every update, your attention becomes overloaded. Your ability to think clearly declines. Your creativity suffers. Your productivity drops. The solution isn't consuming more information. The solution is consuming less. But consuming better. Think about the news. Most people check it daily. Some check it hourly. Breaking news alerts arrive constantly. Political updates. Economic reports. Celebrity stories. Global events. Ferriss asks a simple question. How much of this information actually changes your decisions? The answer is surprisingly little. Most news doesn't require immediate action. Most updates have no direct impact on your life. Yet they occupy enormous amounts of mental space. This creates a dangerous habit. Reactive living. Instead of focusing on our priorities, we constantly react to external events. Someone sends an email. We respond. A notification appears. We check it. A headline appears. We read it. Our attention becomes controlled by outside forces. Ferriss believes freedom begins when you reclaim control of your attention. Because attention is your most valuable asset. Where attention goes, life follows. If your attention is scattered, your results will be scattered. If your attention is focused, your results improve dramatically. Let's consider email. One of Ferriss's most famous productivity recommendations involves reducing email frequency. Many people check email dozens of times every day. Some check every few minutes. Each time they check, their concentration breaks. Their focus resets. Their productivity declines. Researchers often describe this as context switching. Every time you shift attention, your brain pays a cost. Imagine driving a car and changing directions every 30 seconds. You'd never reach your destination efficiently. Yet that's exactly how many people work. Email. Social media. Text message. News article. Phone call. Back to email. Back to social media. The brain never settles into deep focus. Ferriss recommends checking email only at specific times. Maybe twice per day. Maybe 3 times. The exact number doesn't matter. What matters is intentionality. Instead of allowing email to control you, you control email. This simple change can save hours every week. But the lesson goes deeper than email. It's really about learning to eliminate unnecessary inputs. Most people assume productivity comes from adding more. More apps. More tools. More strategies. More information. Ferriss argues the opposite. Real productivity often comes from subtraction. Removing distractions. Eliminating noise. Creating space for meaningful work. Think about some of history's greatest achievements. Books. Scientific discoveries. Business innovations. Works of art. Most were created during periods of deep concentration. Not while checking notifications every 5 minutes. Not while scrolling endlessly through feeds. Not while consuming constant updates. Great work requires uninterrupted attention. And attention is becoming increasingly rare. That's why it's becoming increasingly valuable. The ability to focus may be one of the most important skills of the modern age. Because while everyone else is distracted, focused individuals create. They build businesses, write books, develop skills, solve problems, move forward. Meanwhile, distracted people remain stuck. Ferriss also emphasizes another important idea. Not every opportunity deserves attention. Many people fear missing out. They worry that if they ignore an email, they'll miss something important. If they skip the news, they'll fall behind. If they disconnect, opportunities will disappear. But in reality, most opportunities are not urgent. And most urgent things are not important. That's a crucial distinction. Urgent tasks scream for attention. Important tasks quietly create long-term results. The challenge is learning to prioritize importance over urgency. For example, writing a book may be important. Learning a new skill may be important. Building a business may be important. Improving your health may be important. But these activities rarely feel urgent. No notification reminds you. No alarm demands action. Therefore, they get postponed. Meanwhile, emails and notifications constantly demand immediate attention. Ferriss encourages readers to reverse this pattern. Focus first on what's important. Ignore as much noise as possible. Protect your attention aggressively. Treat focus like a valuable resource. Because it is. Imagine trying to fill a bucket with water while dozens of holes leak from the sides. No matter how much water you add, the bucket never fills. That's what happens when your attention constantly leaks through distractions. You work harder. Consume more information. Stay busier. Yet progress remains limited. The solution isn't adding more water. It's closing the holes. That's the essence of elimination. Remove unnecessary distractions. Reduce information overload. Create mental space. And focus on what truly matters. Because success rarely comes from knowing more than everyone else. It comes from applying the right knowledge consistently. Ferriss wants readers to understand a simple truth. The world will always offer more information than you can consume. More videos. More articles. More updates. More notifications. The goal isn't to keep up with everything. The goal is to focus on what matters. When you learn that skill, your productivity increases. Your stress decreases. Your clarity improves. And your life becomes far more intentional. Because in the end, freedom isn't only about controlling your time. It's also about controlling your attention. And whoever controls your attention controls your life. Why freedom is more valuable than money. The first person earns $1 million a year. They drive a luxury car. They own a beautiful house. Their social media profile looks impressive. From the outside, they appear successful. But there's a problem. They work 12 hours a day. They answer emails constantly. They rarely see their family. They can't take vacations without worrying about work. Their income is high. But their freedom is low. Now imagine another person. This person earns far less money. Maybe $100,000 per year. Nothing extraordinary. But they control their schedule. They work from anywhere. They travel regularly. They spend time with friends and family. They pursue hobbies and passions. They wake up excited about life. Who is truly richer? Most people immediately focus on income. But Tim Ferriss asks us to look deeper. Because wealth is not just about money. It's about freedom. And this idea forms one of the most important lessons in the 4-hour workweek. Ferriss introduces a concept he calls the new rich. The new rich are different from traditional wealthy people. Traditionally, society measures success through visible symbols. Expensive cars. Large homes. Luxury watches. High salaries. Prestigious job titles. These things signal status. But Ferriss argues that many people chase these symbols without asking an important question. What do these things actually provide? When you dig deeper, most people don't want money itself. They want what money can buy. Freedom. Experiences. Security. Adventure. Time with loved ones. Personal growth. The problem is that many people spend their entire lives accumulating money while sacrificing the very things they hoped money would eventually provide. It's like climbing a ladder only to discover it's leaning against the wrong wall. Ferriss challenges readers to rethink the entire concept of wealth. He asks, what if wealth isn't measured by how much money you have? What if wealth is measured by how much control you have over your life? This shift changes everything. Because suddenly, success becomes less about accumulation and more about design. Let's imagine a simple scenario. You have two options. Option 1. You earn $500,000 per year. But you work 80 hours every week. Your schedule is controlled by clients, meetings, and deadlines. You rarely have free time. Option 2. You earn $100,000 per year. You work 15 to 20 hours each week. You choose when and where you work. You can travel whenever you want. You spend meaningful time with family and friends. Which option sounds more attractive? For many people, the answer isn't obvious. Because society trains us to prioritize income above all else. From childhood, we're told to get a good job. Earn more money. Buy a bigger house. Increase our status. Rarely are we taught to maximize freedom. Rarely are we taught to design our lifestyles intentionally. Instead, we inherit a script. Work hard now. Enjoy life later. Ferriss believes this script is deeply flawed. Because later is never guaranteed. And because many people become trapped in what he calls the deferred life plan. The deferred life plan is simple. People postpone happiness until some future event. They'll travel later. Relax later. Spend time with family later. Pursue dreams later. Everything important gets pushed into the future. But the future keeps moving. The promotion arrives. Then another goal appears. The salary increases. Then expenses increase. The cycle never ends. Many people spend decades chasing a future they never actually reach. Ferriss wants readers to break that cycle. Instead of asking, how can I become rich someday? Ask, how can I create a rich life today? Notice the difference. The first question focuses on money. The second focuses on lifestyle. And according to Ferriss, lifestyle is what really matters. One reason people chase money is because they believe it creates options. And they're right. Money can create opportunities. It can remove constraints. It can provide comfort. But money alone isn't enough. Imagine becoming a billionaire who never has time to enjoy life. Would that truly be success? Most people would say no. Because money is a tool. Not the destination. The destination is freedom. Freedom to choose. Freedom to explore. Freedom to create. Freedom to spend time on what matters. The new rich understand this distinction. They don't work endlessly to accumulate wealth. They build systems that create freedom. This doesn't necessarily mean becoming a millionaire. It means designing a life where your time belongs to you. Think about the most memorable moments of your life. Perhaps it was a trip with friends. A conversation with someone you love. A challenge you overcame. A new skill you learned. A dream you finally pursued. Notice something interesting. Most meaningful memories aren't tied directly to money. They're tied to experiences. And experiences require time. That's why Ferriss believes time is the ultimate currency. Money can be earned again. Time cannot. Once a day is gone, it's gone forever. This realization changes how we evaluate success. Instead of asking, "How much money did I make today?" we begin asking, "How did I spend my time today?" Because time reveals priorities. Where your time goes, your life follows. Many people unknowingly trade their lives for things they don't truly value. They work extra hours to buy things they barely use. They sacrifice relationships for promotions they don't enjoy. They pursue status that doesn't make them happy. Ferriss encourages readers to question these assumptions. Not because ambition is wrong, but because unconscious ambition can be dangerous. If you're going to work hard, make sure you're moving towards something meaningful. Make sure the destination is worth the journey. Another characteristic of the new rich is mobility. Ferriss emphasizes the value of location independence. In the traditional model, work is tied to a specific place. You commute daily. You sit in an office. Your location determines your opportunities. But technology has changed many of those limitations. Today, people can build businesses online. Work remotely. Serve clients globally. Create income from almost anywhere. For Ferriss, this isn't just about convenience. It's about freedom. When you're no longer tied to a location, new possibilities emerge. You can travel. Explore different cultures. Design your environment intentionally. Experience life more fully. Again, the focus isn't money. The focus is freedom. The new rich also understand that owning things can become a burden. Many people spend years acquiring possessions. Then spend even more time maintaining them. Larger homes require more maintenance. More possessions require more attention. More complexity creates more stress. Ferriss often promotes simplicity. Not because possessions are bad, but because simplicity creates flexibility. The fewer things controlling your life, the more freedom you possess. This philosophy extends beyond material possessions. It applies to commitments, obligations, responsibilities. Anything that consumes time and attention. The new rich constantly ask, is this adding freedom or reducing freedom? It's a powerful question. And it forces us to evaluate our choices differently. Because many opportunities that appear attractive on the surface come with hidden costs. A higher salary might require longer hours. A promotion might increase stress. A larger house might increase expenses. Success always carries trade-offs. The key is choosing trade-offs intentionally. Not accidentally. That's why Ferriss encourages readers to define success for themselves. Not according to society. Not according to social media. Not according to cultural expectations. According to their own values. What does an ideal life look like? How much income is actually necessary? How much free time do you want? What experiences matter most? What relationships deserve attention? These questions are far more important than simply asking how to make more money. Because once you know what kind of life you want, money becomes a tool for achieving that vision. Not the vision itself. And that may be the most important lesson of all. The new rich don't pursue wealth for its own sake. They pursue freedom. They understand that money is valuable because of what it allows. Not because of what it is. At the end of life, very few people wish they had spent more time in the office. Very few wish they had attended more meetings. Very few wish they had accumulated more possessions. But many wish they had spent more time with loved ones. More time exploring. More time creating. More time living. Ferriss wants readers to remember that. Because true wealth isn't measured by your bank account. It's measured by your ability to live life on your own terms. And that's what being rich really means. The powerful exercise that helps you take action. What would you do if you weren't afraid? Take a moment and think about that question. Would you start a business? Travel the world? Quit a job you hate? Write a book? Launch a YouTube channel? Learn a new skill? Move to a different city? For many people, the answer comes immediately. Deep down, they already know what they want. The problem isn't a lack of goals. The problem is fear. Fear of failure. Fear of rejection. Fear of embarrassment. Fear of uncertainty. Fear of making the wrong decision. Fear is one of the most powerful forces in human life. It keeps people safe. But it also keeps people stuck. And according to the 4-Hour Workweek, learning how to manage fear is one of the most important skills anyone can develop. Most people spend years waiting for fear to disappear. They believe confidence comes first. Action comes later. But Tim Ferriss discovered something different. Confidence often comes after action. Not before. And the reason people fail to act isn't because fear is too large. It's because fear is too vague. Think about it. Imagine you're considering starting your own business. Immediately, your mind begins generating scary possibilities. What if it fails? What if I lose money? What if people laugh at me? What if I'm not good enough? What if everything goes wrong? The fear grows larger and larger. But notice something important. These fears are usually undefined. They're blurry. General. Abstract. And because they're unclear, they become overwhelming. Ferriss created an exercise called fear setting to solve this problem. Most people set goals. Few people set fears. Yet fear often controls behavior far more than goals do. Fear setting forces you to confront fear directly. Instead of running from it. Instead of ignoring it. Instead of pretending it doesn't exist. You examine it carefully. Let's imagine an example. Suppose someone wants to quit their job and start an online business. They're excited. But they're terrified. Most people stop there. They feel fear and avoid action. Ferriss recommends something different. Write down the worst-case scenario. Not the vague version. The specific version. What exactly are you afraid of? Maybe you're afraid of losing income. Maybe you're afraid of disappointing family members. Maybe you're afraid of failure. Maybe you're afraid of looking foolish. Write everything down. Now comes the second step. Ask. If this fear became reality, what could I do to repair the damage? This question changes everything. Because most fears feel permanent. But in reality, many setbacks are temporary. Let's continue our example. Suppose the business fails. What happens next? Could you find another job? Probably. Could you use the skills you learned? Absolutely. Could you recover financially over time? Most likely. Suddenly, the catastrophe doesn't seem quite so catastrophic. This doesn't eliminate risk. But it puts risk into perspective. Fear often grows in darkness. When we examine it closely, it loses much of its power. Ferriss discovered that most fears aren't nearly as dangerous as they initially appear. But there's another side to fear setting. A side that most people ignore. After examining the cost of action, Ferriss asks readers to examine the cost of inaction. And this may be the most important part of the exercise. Imagine staying exactly where you are. No changes. No risks. No bold decisions. No action. What does your life look like 6 months from now? 1 year from now? 5 years from now? 10 years from now? This question can be uncomfortable. Because many people focus entirely on the risks of action while ignoring the risks of inaction. They ask, what if I fail? But rarely ask, what if I never try? The second question is often far more important. Imagine someone who dreams of becoming a writer. Every year they say, maybe next year. Years pass. The dream remains unfinished. Eventually, they realize they never even attempted it. Which outcome is more painful? Trying and failing? Or never trying at all? Ferriss believes many of life's greatest regrets come not from failure but from avoidance. People regret opportunities missed. Dreams postponed. Risks never taken. Words never spoken. Not because they lacked talent, but because fear convinced them to wait. The problem is that fear often disguises itself as logic. It sounds reasonable. It says, now isn't the right time. You need more preparation. Wait until things are more stable. Maybe later. Sometimes those concerns are valid. But often they're simply fear wearing a disguise. Ferriss encourages readers to challenge these assumptions. Not recklessly. Not impulsively. Thoughtfully. Objectively. He wants people to examine their fears instead of automatically obeying them. Because fear is not always a reliable advisor. Think about some of the greatest achievements in history. Businesses. Innovations. Scientific discoveries. Works of art. Social movements. Most existed because someone acted despite fear. Not because they were fearless. Fearlessness is largely a myth. Even highly successful people experience fear. Entrepreneurs feel fear. Athletes feel fear. Writers feel fear. Public speakers feel fear. Leaders feel fear. The difference is not the absence of fear. The difference is their relationship with fear. Successful people understand that fear often points toward growth. In fact, Ferriss makes a fascinating observation. The things we fear most are often the things we most need to do. Think about your own life. What conversation are you avoiding? What opportunity have you postponed? What dream keeps returning to your mind? What challenge makes you nervous? Sometimes those fears reveal exactly where growth is waiting. Because growth rarely happens inside comfort zones. Comfort feels safe. Predictable. Familiar. But comfort also has limitations. Nothing changes there. No breakthroughs occur. No transformation happens. The life you want usually exists beyond your current comfort zone. And fear is often standing at the entrance. Imagine learning to swim. The first step into deep water feels uncomfortable. Your heart races. Your mind imagines danger. But eventually, you realize you can handle more than you thought. The same principle applies throughout life. Fear frequently exaggerates difficulty. It magnifies uncertainty. It predicts disaster. Yet reality is often much kinder than fear suggests. That doesn't mean every risk succeeds. Some ventures fail. Some plans collapse. Some decisions don't work out. But failure itself is rarely fatal. Most failures become lessons. Experience. Feedback. Growth. What truly damages people is paralysis. Years spent waiting. Years spent postponing. Years spent hoping conditions become perfect. Because perfect conditions never arrive. There will always be uncertainty. There will always be reasons to wait. There will always be potential risks. If you wait until fear disappears, you may wait forever. Ferriss wants readers to recognize something powerful. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is acting despite fear. It's taking the next step even when certainty is unavailable. It's trusting that you can adapt. Learn. Recover. Grow. And perhaps the most empowering realization of all is this. You are probably more resilient than you think. Most people underestimate their ability to handle challenges. They imagine worst-case scenarios. Yet if those scenarios occurred, they'd likely find solutions. Humans are remarkably adaptable. We recover. We learn. We move forward. Ferriss discovered that when people honestly evaluate their fears, most fears shrink dramatically. Not because the risks disappear, but because they become understandable, manageable, concrete. Fear loses its mystery. And when fear loses its mystery, action becomes possible. That's why fear setting is so powerful. It transforms fear from a giant shadow into a series of practical questions. Questions that can be answered. Problems that can be solved. Challenges that can be managed. And once that happens, something remarkable occurs. The dream that once felt impossible suddenly feels achievable. The risk that seemed overwhelming becomes reasonable. The future that felt uncertain becomes exciting. Because action finally replaces avoidance. And that is the real lesson. The goal is not to eliminate fear. The goal is to stop letting fear make your decisions. Because every meaningful life contains uncertainty. Every great adventure contains risk. Every important goal requires courage. The question isn't whether fear will appear. The question is whether you'll let it stop you. How to build systems that work without you. Imagine owning a business that earns money while you sleep. A business that continues operating while you're traveling. A business that serves customers while you're spending time with family. A business that doesn't require you to sit behind a computer all day. For many people, this sounds like a fantasy. After all, most of us are taught a simple equation. More work equals more income. If you stop working, the money stops too. This belief shapes how millions of people live. They trade hours for dollars. Time for income. Effort for survival. And while this system can work, it creates a serious problem. Your income becomes dependent on your constant presence. You are no longer building a business. You have become the business. And according to the 4-hour workweek, that's one of the biggest traps people fall into. Tim Ferriss argues that true freedom comes from automation. Not because automation eliminates work completely, but because it reduces dependency on your direct involvement. Instead of doing everything yourself, you build systems that continue functioning without you. This lesson begins with a simple question. What would happen if you disappeared for 30 days? Think about it honestly. If you stopped checking emails, stopped answering calls, stopped managing daily operations, would your work continue? Or would everything collapse? For many people, the answer is uncomfortable. Everything would stop. Clients would wait. Projects would stall. Income would disappear. That's because their entire system depends on them. Ferriss experienced this problem firsthand. His business was growing rapidly. More customers. More orders. More opportunities. At first, this seemed exciting. But growth created new challenges. More customer questions. More administrative tasks. More emails. More responsibilities. Soon, he found himself trapped. The business that was supposed to provide freedom had become a prison. Every day required his attention. Every decision depended on him. Every problem landed on his desk. And that's when he realized something important. Growth without systems creates chaos. Many entrepreneurs assume success means doing more. More customers. More sales. More projects. More employees. But Ferriss discovered that scaling effort isn't enough. You must scale systems. Otherwise, success becomes exhausting. Imagine running a restaurant. Every customer order requires your personal approval. Every payment requires your involvement. Every employee needs your supervision. As the restaurant grows, your workload grows. Eventually, growth becomes a burden. Now imagine a different restaurant. Clear procedures exist. Employees understand their roles. Orders flow smoothly. Systems handle routine operations. The owner still provides leadership, but daily operations no longer depend entirely on them. That's the difference automation creates. It transforms dependence into leverage. And leverage is one of the most powerful concepts in business. Leverage means achieving greater results with less direct effort. Think about a lever in physics. A small amount of force can move a heavy object. Business works the same way. Systems allow small actions to create larger outcomes. Ferriss encourages readers to identify repetitive tasks. Tasks that happen again and again. Tasks that consume time without requiring creativity. Tasks that follow predictable patterns. Why? Because repetitive tasks are prime candidates for automation. Consider customer support. Many businesses answer the same questions repeatedly. What are your hours? How does shipping work? What is your refund policy? How can I contact support? Instead of answering these questions individually thousands of times, businesses create FAQs, automated responses, and support systems. The result? Customers receive answers quickly. The business saves time. Everyone benefits. This principle applies far beyond customer service. Think about scheduling meetings. Managing invoices. Processing payments. Sending reminders. Tracking data. Generating reports. Many routine activities can be automated. And every task automated creates additional freedom. But Ferriss warns readers about something important. The goal isn't automation for its own sake. The goal is freedom. Technology is merely a tool. A system that saves time is valuable. A system that creates complexity is not. Many people make the mistake of building complicated systems that require constant maintenance. They automate one problem and create 3 new ones. Ferriss advocates simplicity. Simple systems are easier to manage. Easier to understand. Easier to scale. The best automation often goes unnoticed. It quietly works in the background, producing results without demanding attention. Another key concept Ferriss discusses is delegation. Because sometimes the best automation isn't software. It's another person. Many professionals waste enormous amounts of time performing tasks that someone else could handle. Data entry. Research. Scheduling. Administrative work. Customer support. The problem isn't capability. The problem is control. People believe it's faster if I do it myself. And sometimes that's true. At first. But what happens when the same task repeats hundreds of times? Eventually, doing everything yourself becomes a bottleneck. Imagine a company where every decision must pass through one person. As the company grows, that person becomes overwhelmed. Progress slows. Opportunities disappear. Stress increases. Now imagine a company where responsibilities are distributed effectively. People handle specific functions. Decisions happen efficiently. Work continues even when the owner is absent. That's the power of delegation. Ferriss encourages readers to think like architects. Architects don't build every brick themselves. They design systems. They create structures. They establish processes. Similarly, successful entrepreneurs focus on building frameworks rather than performing every task personally. This shift requires trust. And trust can be difficult. Many people fear delegation because they worry others won't meet their standards. They believe, no one can do it as well as I can. Sometimes they're right. But Ferriss points out an important reality. Perfection is often the enemy of freedom. If someone can perform a task at 80% of your level, that may be enough. Especially if it frees you to focus on higher value activities. Imagine spending 10 hours each week on administrative work. Now imagine delegating that work. Suddenly, 10 hours become available. 10 hours for strategy, creativity, learning, family, health, growth. The value of those 10 hours may far exceed the cost of delegation. This is one of the most difficult lessons for ambitious people to learn. Because many successful individuals take pride in doing everything themselves. But eventually, self-reliance becomes a limitation. To create freedom, you must learn to let go. Not completely. Not recklessly. Strategically. Ferriss often asks readers to identify tasks that truly require their unique abilities. What activities generate the greatest value? What work genuinely depends on you? Everything else becomes a candidate for automation or delegation. This simple exercise reveals an uncomfortable truth. Most people spend surprisingly little time on their highest value work. Instead, they become trapped in maintenance mode. Managing details. Handling interruptions. Solving routine problems. Staying busy. But busyness is not the goal. Freedom is the goal. And freedom requires systems. Let's imagine two business owners. The first owner works 14 hours every day. Every customer issue reaches them. Every decision requires their approval. Every process depends on their involvement. If they stop working, revenue stops. The second owner works strategically. Systems handle routine operations. Automation manages repetitive tasks. Employees solve common problems. Revenue continues even when they're absent. Which owner truly owns a business? And which owner owns a demanding job? Ferriss wants readers to understand this distinction. Because many people accidentally create businesses that consume their lives. They achieve financial success but lose personal freedom. Automation prevents this outcome. It transforms businesses into assets rather than obligations. But the lesson extends beyond business. Life itself benefits from systems. Meal planning. Budgeting. Exercise routines. Learning habits. Daily schedules. Whenever you create systems, decision fatigue decreases. Consistency improves. Results become easier to achieve. In many ways, automation is simply intelligent design. It's creating structures that support desired outcomes, without requiring constant willpower, without demanding endless attention, without consuming unnecessary energy. And that's why automation plays such a central role in the 4-hour workweek. Because Ferriss isn't merely teaching business strategies. He's teaching lifestyle design. He's teaching people how to reclaim their time, how to reduce unnecessary effort, how to create freedom intentionally. The ultimate goal is not to avoid work. Meaningful work can be deeply rewarding. The goal is to eliminate unnecessary work, to remove repetitive tasks, to reduce dependency, to create leverage, and to build systems that support the life you actually want. Because freedom doesn't happen by accident. Freedom is designed. One system at a time. How successful people buy back their time. Imagine someone offers you an extra 2 hours every day. No catch. No special technology. No time machine. Just 2 additional hours to spend however you want. What would you do with that time? Would you learn a new skill? Build a business? Exercise? Spend more time with family? Travel? Read? Relax? Now imagine gaining not just 2 hours, but 10. Or 20. Every single week. This is one of the most powerful ideas in the 4-hour workweek. The idea that time can be bought back. Not by working harder, but by delegating intelligently. Most people think delegation is something only wealthy executives do. They imagine CEOs sitting in large offices while teams handle every responsibility. But Tim Ferriss argues that delegation is not a luxury. It's a skill. And learning this skill can dramatically improve your life. The problem begins with a common belief. If I want something done right, I have to do it myself. At first, this sounds reasonable. After all, nobody understands your work as well as you do. Nobody knows your preferences better than you. Nobody cares as much as you care. So you handle everything personally. Every email. Every task. Every decision. Every problem. And for a while, this seems efficient. But eventually something happens. The workload grows. Responsibilities increase. Demands multiply. And suddenly you're overwhelmed. The same habit that once helped you succeed begins holding you back. Ferriss learned this lesson while running his own business. As his company expanded, so did the number of tasks requiring attention. Customer questions. Administrative work. Scheduling. Research. Order management. Technical support. At first, he tried to handle everything himself. But there was a problem. The more successful the business became, the less freedom he had. He was trapped by his own success. And that's when he realized something important. Not all tasks deserve your attention. Some activities require your expertise. Others do not. The challenge is knowing the difference. Imagine you're the captain of a ship. Would you personally clean every deck? Cook every meal? Repair every rope? Probably not. Your role is leadership. Navigation. Decision-making. The ship functions because responsibilities are shared. Yet many people approach their careers and businesses differently. They try to do everything. And as a result, they become exhausted. Ferriss encourages readers to think of time as a valuable investment. Every task carries a cost. Not just financial cost. Opportunity cost. When you spend 1 hour doing something low value, that hour cannot be spent doing something high value. This idea changes how we think about work. The question becomes, is this the best use of my time? Not, can I do this task myself? Because often, the answer is yes. You can do it yourself. But that doesn't mean you should. Let's consider an example. Imagine a business owner spending 3 hours every day answering routine customer emails. Could they do it? Absolutely. But should they? Maybe not. Those same 3 hours could be used for marketing, strategy, product development, relationship building, activities that create far greater value. Delegation allows people to focus on their strengths. And that's where virtual assistants enter the story. A virtual assistant, often called a VA, is someone who handles specific tasks remotely. They may answer emails, manage schedules, conduct research, organize information, coordinate appointments, process paperwork, or perform countless other responsibilities. Ferriss was one of the early advocates for using virtual assistants. At first, the concept felt unusual to many people. Why hire someone to perform tasks you can do yourself? His answer was simple. Because your time has value. And if someone else can perform a task competently, it may be worth delegating. This idea challenges deeply rooted beliefs. Many people associate self-reliance with success. They take pride in handling everything personally. They believe asking for help is a weakness. Ferriss disagrees. He argues that intelligent delegation is a strength. Because it demonstrates strategic thinking. Think about professional athletes. Do they train alone? No. They work with coaches, nutritionists, medical professionals, trainers, experts. Why? Because specialization creates better outcomes. The same principle applies in business and life. You don't have to be the expert in everything. You only need to focus on what matters most. One of the biggest obstacles to delegation is perfectionism. People worry that others won't perform tasks exactly the way they would. And often, that's true. Another person may do things differently. But different does not necessarily mean worse. Ferriss introduces an important concept. 80% done by someone else may be better than 100% done by you. Why? Because it frees your attention. And attention is limited. Imagine spending 5 hours organizing spreadsheets. You could complete the task perfectly. Or someone else could complete it at 85% quality while freeing 5 hours of your time. What could you accomplish with those 5 hours? Perhaps something far more valuable. The hidden cost of perfectionism is that it consumes resources. Time. Energy. Focus. And often the improvements are minor. Many people spend enormous effort chasing tiny gains while neglecting major opportunities. Delegation helps correct this imbalance. It forces you to ask, what truly requires my involvement? And the answer is usually fewer things than you think. Ferriss often recommends starting small. Don't delegate everything immediately. Begin with simple tasks. Low-risk responsibilities. Activities that are repetitive and predictable. For example, scheduling meetings, managing travel arrangements, researching information, organizing files, handling basic communications. These tasks may seem small individually, but together they consume significant time. Eliminating them creates breathing room. And breathing room creates freedom. Another powerful lesson from Ferriss is that delegation teaches clarity. When you explain a task to someone else, you must define the process. You must identify expectations. You must communicate priorities. This often reveals inefficiencies. Many people discover they don't fully understand their own systems until they attempt to delegate them. The process itself creates improvement. But delegation isn't only about business. It applies to personal life as well. Think about household responsibilities, errands, administrative tasks, routine obligations. Many people spend countless hours managing activities that could be simplified or outsourced. The goal is not laziness. The goal is intentionality. Ferriss isn't encouraging people to avoid responsibility. He's encouraging them to focus responsibility where it matters most. Imagine someone spending 10 hours each week on low-value tasks. After delegation, those 10 hours become available. That's 40 hours every month. Nearly 500 hours every year. What could you accomplish with 500 additional hours? Learn a language? Build a side business? Write a book? Improve your health? Strengthen relationships? Travel? The possibilities are enormous. And that's why Ferriss views delegation as more than a productivity tool. He sees it as a lifestyle tool. A way of reclaiming time. A way of designing life intentionally. Because most people don't need more time. They need better use of the time they already have. Delegation creates leverage. Leverage multiplies impact. And impact creates freedom. Perhaps the most important lesson is this. Your value is not determined by how many tasks you personally complete. Your value is determined by the results you create. Many people stay trapped because they confuse effort with importance. They believe constant activity proves significance. But activity alone means very little. Results matter. Progress matters. Meaningful work matters. And often, the path to those outcomes requires letting go of smaller responsibilities. That's the paradox. To accomplish more, you often need to do less. To gain freedom, you must release control. To grow, you must trust others. Ferriss wants readers to understand that delegation isn't about avoiding work. It's about focusing on the right work. The work only you can do. The work that creates the greatest value. The work that aligns with your goals. Everything else becomes a candidate for delegation. Because life is too short to spend all of it managing tasks that don't truly matter. The most successful people understand this. They don't try to carry the entire burden themselves. They build support systems. They create leverage. They buy back their time. And in doing so, they create something far more valuable than money. They create freedom. How to build a small business that funds your dream lifestyle. What if you didn't need $1 billion company to become free? What if you didn't need hundreds of employees? What if you didn't need investors, giant offices, or endless meetings? What if a small, simple business could generate enough income to support the lifestyle you truly want? This idea sits at the center of one of the most practical lessons in the 4-hour workweek. Tim Ferriss calls it creating a muse. And according to him, a muse is one of the fastest paths to freedom. Most people have been taught to think big. Build the next giant company. Become the next tech billionaire. Create an empire. Scale endlessly. While there's nothing wrong with ambition, Ferriss believes many people are chasing the wrong goal. Because bigger isn't always better. In fact, bigger often creates more complexity. More employees. More responsibilities. More meetings. More problems. More stress. Many entrepreneurs spend years building businesses that eventually control them. They become managers instead of creators. Operators instead of owners. The business grows larger. But freedom shrinks. Ferriss wanted something different. He wasn't interested in creating the biggest company possible. He wanted to create a business that supported his ideal lifestyle. And that distinction changed everything. Instead of asking, "How can I build a huge company?" he asked, "How can I build a simple system that generates income with minimal involvement?" That question led to the concept of the muse. A muse is a small business designed primarily for freedom. Its purpose is not status. Its purpose is not scale. Its purpose is not domination. Its purpose is lifestyle support. Think of it this way. Imagine your ideal life costs $5,000 per month. Or perhaps $10,000. Or $15,000. The exact number doesn't matter. Now imagine creating a business that reliably generates that amount of income while requiring only a few hours of oversight each week. Would you still need a giant corporation? Probably not. You'd already have what many people are actually seeking. Time freedom. Location freedom. Financial flexibility. This is the core insight Ferriss wants readers to understand. Most people don't need millions of dollars. They need enough income to support the life they want. And often, that number is much smaller than they imagine. This realization changes the entire business strategy. Instead of chasing maximum growth, you focus on efficient growth. Instead of building complexity, you build simplicity. Instead of managing hundreds of moving parts, you create streamlined systems. But how do you create a muse? Ferriss outlines a process that begins with identifying a market. Not a product. A market. This is an important distinction. Many entrepreneurs start with an idea they personally love. Then they spend months or years trying to convince people to buy it. Ferriss recommends the opposite approach. Find a group of people with an existing problem. Then create a solution. Because people don't buy products. They buy solutions. Imagine someone suffering from back pain. They don't want a fancy gadget. They want relief. Imagine someone trying to lose weight. They don't want another complicated system. They want results. Imagine someone struggling to learn a skill. They don't want information. They want transformation. Successful businesses solve specific problems. That's why Ferriss emphasizes market demand. Before building anything, ask. Are people already spending money to solve this problem? If the answer is yes, that's a positive sign. Demand already exists. You don't need to create desire. You simply need to satisfy it better. Another principle Ferriss teaches is testing before investing heavily. Many entrepreneurs make a costly mistake. They spend months creating a product before discovering whether anyone wants it. They build websites. Design logos. Create inventory. Develop features. Then launch. Only to discover little interest. Ferriss advocates small experiments. Simple tests. Minimal investment. Validate demand first. Build later. This approach reduces risk dramatically. Imagine opening a restaurant. Traditional thinking says, rent a building. Hire staff. Buy equipment. Invest heavily. Then hope customers arrive. Ferriss would ask, why not test demand first? Why not start smaller? Why not gather evidence before committing resources? The same principle applies to online businesses. Test ideas quickly. Gather feedback. Measure interest. Adjust accordingly. The goal is not perfection. The goal is validation. Because businesses succeed when markets respond positively. Not when founders fall in love with their own ideas. Another characteristic of a muse is automation. As we learned in the previous lesson, Ferriss believes businesses should operate through systems whenever possible. A muse should not require constant supervision. If income stops whenever you stop working, you've simply created another job. A true muse continues functioning even when you're away. That's why automation and delegation are essential. Order processing, customer service, payment systems, marketing sequences. Many tasks can be streamlined. The less direct involvement required, the greater the freedom created. Think about a vending machine. Once installed, it continues generating revenue with minimal effort. While a muse is more complex than a vending machine, the principle is similar. Create a system. Maintain the system. Allow the system to produce results. Ferriss also emphasizes the importance of pricing. Many businesses compete by offering lower prices. They race to the bottom, trying to become the cheapest option available. This strategy often creates problems. Lower prices usually require more customers. More customers create more support requests. More complexity. More work. Ferriss prefers serving smaller groups at higher value. Instead of attracting everyone, focus on helping specific people exceptionally well. This approach often creates better profits and fewer headaches. The muse model is not about mass appeal. It's about strategic appeal. Find the right audience. Solve a meaningful problem. Deliver value consistently. Keep operations simple. This combination can be surprisingly powerful. One reason the muse concept resonates with so many readers is because it challenges conventional assumptions. Society often glorifies massive success. Billion-dollar companies. Celebrity entrepreneurs. Global brands. But Ferriss reminds us that visibility and happiness are not the same thing. Many famous companies generate enormous revenue. Yet their founders remain overwhelmed. Constant meetings. Endless responsibilities. Little personal freedom. Meanwhile, someone running a modest automated business may enjoy far greater control over their life. Who is more successful? The answer depends on your definition of success. And that's precisely Ferriss's point. Success should be defined intentionally. Not inherited automatically from society. If your goal is freedom, your strategy should reflect that goal. If your goal is lifestyle design, your business should support that vision. The muse becomes a vehicle. Not a destination. A tool that funds experiences. Adventures. Learning. Relationships. Personal growth. The things that truly matter. Perhaps the most important lesson from the muse concept is this. You don't need to build something enormous to change your life. You only need to build something effective. Something valuable. Something sustainable. Something aligned with your goals. Many people postpone freedom because they believe they need extraordinary success first. Ferriss argues that freedom can arrive much sooner. Not through massive scale. But through intelligent design. Through systems. Through automation. Through focus. Through simplicity. And through the courage to reject the assumption that bigger is always better. Because sometimes the smartest business is not the largest one. It's the one that gives you your life back. That's the purpose of a muse. Not endless growth. Not endless hustle. Freedom. And when a business provides freedom, it has already achieved something extraordinary. How to create your ideal life instead of living by default. Imagine waking up tomorrow with complete freedom. No alarm clock. No commute. No obligations you didn't choose. No schedule designed by someone else. You wake up and ask a simple question. What do I want to do today? For many people, this question feels strange. Not because they don't have desires, but because they've spent so long reacting to life that they've forgotten how to design it. They follow routines, meet expectations, pay bills, handle responsibilities, repeat, day after day, year after year, without ever stopping to ask, is this the life I actually want? This question lies at the heart of one of the most important lessons in the 4-hour workweek. Tim Ferriss calls it lifestyle design. And according to him, most people never consciously design their lives. Instead, they inherit a template. A script written by society. Go to school. Get a job. Work hard. Buy a house. Retire. Then enjoy life. This script is so common that many people never question it. They simply assume it's the correct path. But Ferriss encourages readers to pause and think critically. Who decided this was the ideal life? Why do we assume success looks the same for everyone? Why do we chase goals we never consciously chose? These questions can be uncomfortable, because they challenge deeply held beliefs. But they also create opportunity. The opportunity to build a life intentionally rather than accidentally. Imagine two architects. The first architect receives a blueprint and follows it exactly. No questions. No modifications. No creativity. The second architect designs the blueprint from scratch. Every room reflects a purpose. Every detail reflects a choice. Which architect has more control over the final result? The answer is obvious. Yet many people approach life like the first architect. They follow inherited blueprints without examining them. They pursue careers because others expect it. They buy things because society values them. They define success according to external standards. And years later, they wonder why fulfillment feels elusive. Ferriss believes fulfillment requires intentional design, not passive acceptance. That's why he asks readers to define their ideal lifestyle. Not their ideal career. Not their ideal salary. Their ideal life. This distinction matters. Most people begin with money. They ask, how can I make more? Ferriss starts somewhere else. He asks, what kind of life do I want? Only after answering that question does he focus on income. Because money is a tool. Lifestyle is the destination. Imagine someone earning $1 million annually. But they hate their work. Rarely see family. Feel constantly stressed. And have little control over their schedule. Now imagine someone earning far less. Yet they love their work. Travel regularly. Enjoy strong relationships. And control their time. Which life is better? The answer depends on values. And that's precisely the point. Lifestyle design begins with identifying those values. What matters most to you? Adventure? Creativity? Learning? Family? Health? Freedom? Contribution? Growth? There is no universal answer. The right answer is personal. But until you define it, other people will define success for you. And that's dangerous. Because external success does not guarantee internal satisfaction. Ferriss encourages readers to dream specifically. Not vaguely. Many people say they want freedom. But what does freedom actually look like? Where are you living? What are you doing? Who are you spending time with? How do your days unfold? The clearer the vision becomes, the easier it becomes to build. Think of a GPS. If you don't know the destination, the system can't guide you. Life works similarly. Clarity creates direction. Direction creates action. Action creates results. Without clarity, people drift. They stay busy but disconnected. Active but uncertain. Productive but unfulfilled. Another key idea in lifestyle design is rejecting the idea that life must follow a traditional timeline. Society often presents milestones as mandatory. Graduate by a certain age. Get married by a certain age. Buy a house by a certain age. Reach career milestones by a certain age. Fall behind these expectations and many people feel like failures. Ferriss challenges this mindset. He argues that life is not a race. There is no universal schedule. No single path. No official timeline. The goal is not to keep pace with others. The goal is to create a life aligned with your values. This shift can be liberating. Because comparison is one of the greatest obstacles to happiness. People constantly compare income, homes, cars, careers, achievements. Social media has amplified this tendency dramatically. Every day we're exposed to curated versions of other people's lives. And it's easy to feel inadequate. Ferriss reminds readers that comparison often leads people away from their own priorities. They begin chasing goals they don't genuinely care about. Not because those goals matter, but because others appear to value them. Lifestyle design requires resisting that pressure. It requires defining success independently. Another important concept is experimentation. Many people wait for certainty before making changes. They want guarantees, perfect information, absolute confidence. But life rarely offers those things. Ferriss encourages small experiments. Instead of completely redesigning your life overnight, test possibilities. Interested in remote work? Try it temporarily. Interested in entrepreneurship? Start a side project. Interested in travel? Take a short trip. Interested in a new career? Explore it gradually. Experiments create information. And information reduces uncertainty. The goal is progress, not perfection. This mindset makes change less intimidating. Because you're not committing forever. You're simply gathering data. Learning. Adjusting. Moving forward. Another lesson Ferriss emphasizes is that many constraints are self-imposed. People often assume certain limitations are permanent. I can't travel because of work. I can't change careers. I can't start a business. I can't learn something new. Sometimes these limitations are real. But often they're assumptions. Unexamined beliefs. Stories we tell ourselves. Lifestyle design requires questioning those stories. What if there are alternatives? What if there are options you haven't considered? What if the obstacle isn't reality but perspective? Ferriss discovered that many opportunities emerge when people challenge assumptions. Remote work becomes possible. Flexible schedules emerge. Businesses are created. Dreams become realistic. Not because circumstances magically change, but because thinking changes. And changed thinking creates new actions. Lifestyle design also involves reclaiming ownership of time. Many people schedule their lives around obligations. Work first. Everything else second. Ferriss reverses this approach. He recommends identifying what matters most and building around it. Not because responsibilities disappear, but because priorities deserve protection. If family matters, schedule family time. If health matters, schedule health. If learning matters, schedule learning. What gets scheduled gets protected. What remains vague often gets ignored. Design requires intention. And intention requires planning. Perhaps the most powerful idea in this lesson is that life is not something that happens to you. It's something you create. Day by day. Choice by choice. Decision by decision. Every habit shapes the future. Every commitment influences direction. Every action contributes to the life you're building. Many people live as though life is fixed. Ferriss believes life is flexible. Not infinitely. But far more than most people realize. That's why lifestyle design is so important. It reminds us that we have agency. Choice. Influence. Responsibility. The future is not entirely predetermined. We participate in creating it. And while we cannot control everything, we can control far more than we often believe. At the end of life, very few people wish they had followed more expectations. Very few wish they had spent more energy impressing strangers. Very few wish they had accumulated more status symbols. But many wish they had lived more authentically. Pursued meaningful goals. Taken more chances. Spent more time on what truly mattered. Lifestyle design is about preventing those regrets. It's about creating a life that reflects your values rather than someone else's expectations. A life designed intentionally. A life aligned with purpose. A life built around freedom. Because success is not about living the life others admire. Success is about living the life you genuinely want. And no one else can design that life for you. Only you can. How to break free from the traditional work model and live on your own terms. Imagine standing at a crossroads. Behind you is the life you've always known. The routines. The expectations. The habits. The beliefs about work, success, money, and retirement. Ahead of you is something different. A life designed intentionally. A life where freedom matters as much as income. A life where time is valued more carefully than status. A life where work serves your goals rather than becoming your entire identity. Most people never reach this crossroads consciously. They simply continue moving in the same direction they have always traveled. Not because it's the best path. Not because they've carefully evaluated it. But because it's familiar. And familiarity is powerful. It creates comfort. Predictability. Security. Yet it can also create invisible prisons. This final lesson from the 4-hour workweek is about liberation. Not necessarily quitting your job. Not necessarily becoming an entrepreneur. Not necessarily traveling the world. Liberation means something deeper. It means reclaiming ownership of your life. It means making choices intentionally. It means refusing to live by default. Throughout this book, Tim Ferriss has challenged many traditional assumptions. He questioned retirement. He questioned productivity. He questioned work. He questioned wealth. He questioned success itself. And every challenge points toward a larger idea. Most people inherit their beliefs about life without ever examining them. They accept cultural expectations automatically. Work hard. Stay busy. Climb the ladder. Accumulate possessions. Retire someday. Then enjoy life. But Ferriss asks a simple question. What if there is another way? Not necessarily an easier way. But a more intentional way. A way built around freedom rather than obligation. A way designed around experiences rather than accumulation. A way focused on living rather than postponing life. This idea of liberation begins with awareness. Because you cannot escape a system you don't recognize. Imagine a fish swimming in water. The fish rarely notices the water because it has always existed. In many ways, social expectations work the same way. They're so common that they become invisible. We stop questioning them. We assume everyone should want the same things. The same career path. The same lifestyle. The same goals. The same definition of success. Ferriss encourages readers to wake up. To notice the assumptions surrounding them. To ask difficult questions. Why am I pursuing this goal? Do I actually want it? Or was I taught to want it? Why am I working this way? Is there a better alternative? Why am I postponing happiness? What am I waiting for? These questions create clarity. And clarity creates freedom. Because once you see invisible assumptions, you gain the ability to challenge them. Liberation also requires courage. The courage to be different. The courage to disappoint expectations. The courage to define success independently. This is often harder than people realize. Human beings naturally seek approval. We want acceptance. Belonging. Recognition. And because of that, many people make decisions based on external validation. They choose careers to impress others. Buy things to impress others. Pursue status to impress others. Yet Ferriss repeatedly emphasizes that external validation is a dangerous foundation for life. Because no amount of approval is ever enough. There will always be someone more successful. More accomplished. More wealthy. More admired. If your happiness depends on comparison, peace becomes impossible. Liberation means stepping away from that game. Not because achievement is unimportant. But because achievement should serve your values. Not someone else's. Think about some of the happiest people you've met. Were they necessarily the richest? The most famous? The most powerful? Not always. Often they shared something else. They lived authentically. Their lives aligned with their priorities. Their actions reflected their values. There was consistency between what they believed and how they lived. Ferriss argues that this alignment is one of the greatest forms of freedom. Another important aspect of liberation is learning to trust yourself. Many people spend their lives seeking permission. Permission from society. Permission from employers. Permission from family. Permission from friends. Permission to travel. Permission to change careers. Permission to pursue dreams. Permission to live differently. But true freedom begins when you stop waiting for permission. Because most meaningful opportunities require self-authorization. No one is coming to hand you a perfect plan. No one can guarantee success. No one can remove all uncertainty. At some point, you must choose. You must act. You must take responsibility for your own direction. This responsibility can feel intimidating. But it is also empowering. Because responsibility means influence. It means choice. It means agency. You are no longer simply reacting to life. You are shaping it. Ferriss often reminds readers that life is surprisingly flexible. Far more flexible than most people believe. Many limitations are real. But many are imagined. People assume they must stay in jobs they dislike. Remain in environments that drain them. Follow paths that no longer inspire them. Sometimes change is difficult. Sometimes it requires sacrifice. But difficult does not mean impossible. History is filled with people who redesigned their lives. Changed careers. Started businesses. Moved across the world. Learned new skills. Reinvented themselves. Not because circumstances were perfect, but because they decided to act. Liberation also involves understanding the true value of time. Throughout the book, Ferriss returns to this theme repeatedly. Time is your most precious resource. Not money. Not possessions. Not status. Time. Because everything meaningful requires it. Relationships require time. Health requires time. Learning requires time. Adventure requires time. Growth requires time. Life itself requires time. Yet many people spend years sacrificing time in pursuit of things they hope will eventually provide happiness. Ferriss challenges this logic. He encourages readers to bring meaning into the present. Not someday. Not after retirement. Not after reaching some arbitrary milestone. Now. This doesn't mean abandoning ambition. It means integrating life and ambition together. Instead of delaying life until success arrives. Because success without fulfillment is a hollow victory. And fulfillment postponed indefinitely often becomes fulfillment denied. Another lesson woven throughout the 4-hour workweek is that freedom is a skill. Many people think freedom arrives automatically when circumstances improve. When income increases. When responsibilities decrease. When opportunities appear. But freedom often requires conscious choices. Setting boundaries. Eliminating distractions. Delegating tasks. Building systems. Questioning assumptions. Protecting priorities. Designing life intentionally. These actions create freedom. Not luck. Not fate. Not coincidence. Freedom is built. One decision at a time. One habit at a time. One courageous step at a time. And perhaps the most important realization of all is this. The goal is not to escape life. The goal is to fully experience it. Some people hear the title The 4-Hour Workweek and assume the book is about avoiding work. It isn't. Tim Ferriss is not promoting laziness. He's promoting effectiveness. He's encouraging people to remove unnecessary work so they can focus on meaningful work. The kind of work that energizes rather than drains. The kind of work aligned with purpose. The kind of work that contributes to a fulfilling life. Because meaningful work can be one of the greatest sources of satisfaction. The problem arises when work consumes everything else. When identity becomes trapped inside productivity. When success is measured only by output. Liberation means restoring balance. Restoring choice. Restoring perspective. It means remembering that work is a part of life. Not the entirety of life. And now, after exploring all these lessons, we're left with one final question. What will you do with them? Knowledge alone changes nothing. Every bookstore contains thousands of unread transformations. Every library contains unrealized potential. Ideas matter only when they become action. Ferriss understands this. That's why the book consistently emphasizes experimentation. Take action. Test assumptions. Challenge fears. Try new approaches. Design intentionally. The future is not created through endless planning. It is created through movement. Through action. Through decisions. Through courage. You don't need to redesign your entire life tomorrow. You don't need to quit your job immediately. You don't need to move across the world. But you can begin. You can ask better questions. You can reclaim small pieces of time. You can eliminate unnecessary distractions. You can define success for yourself. You can challenge assumptions. You can move one step closer to freedom. And over time, those small changes create remarkable transformations. Because every extraordinary life begins the same way. With a decision. A decision to stop living by default. A decision to start living by design. And that, ultimately, is the message of the 4-hour workweek. Not that everyone should live the same way. But that everyone has the right to choose their own way. To design their own life. To define their own success. To pursue their own version of freedom. And perhaps there is no greater form of wealth than that. Life is happening now. Not someday. Not after retirement. Not after the next promotion. Now. Use your time wisely. Design intentionally. And never forget that freedom is not something you find. It's something you create.